What if everything you thought you knew about a royal birth was built on silence, secrecy, and unanswered questions? What happens when a family that has ruled for centuries is forced to ask the one question no one dares to whisper out loud? Who really belongs to the bloodline? February 12th, 2026. A date that will echo through royal history. On this morning, Buckingham Palace released a statement so sharp, so deliberate, that it felt less like an announcement and more like a declaration of war. Prince William had officially rejected a DNA report submitted by his brother, Prince Harry, not because it was incomplete, not because it was unsigned, but because, according to William and his advisors, it simply wasn't enough. The report was meant to prove one thing, that Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor is biologically Harry's son and therefore deserves his place within the royal family. But William's response wasn't just skepticism, it was a full institutional blockade. He demanded something more, something the monarchy could control. A second test, conducted not in a private California lab, but under the direct oversight of the Crown's own intelligence network. And just like that, two children became the center of a storm that threatens to tear apart not just a family, but the very foundation of the British monarchy. This isn't a story about a paternity test. This is a story about power, perception, and the invisible lines that separate those who are born royal from those who are merely called it. And at the heart of it all is a question that no one in the palace wants to answer. If you can't trust the bloodline, what's left to believe in? It started quietly, almost too quietly. Late last week, Harry's legal team delivered a package to Clarence House, 72 pages, bound in navy blue, marked confidential. Inside, a carefully assembled collection of documents designed to restore Archie and Lilibet to the royal family after years of exile. The file included a DNA test from a California laboratory confirming Harry's paternity with a confidence level exceeding 99.999%. It included a sworn affidavit from Meghan Markle detailing every stage of her pregnancy. There were ultrasound images from a private obstetrician in Beverly Hills, a certified copy of Archie's birth certificate, even a notarized statement from a hospital staff member. On paper, it was airtight. In practice, it was dead on arrival. Because Prince William didn't just question the science, he questioned the process, the timing, the chain of custody, the very intent behind it. And within hours of receiving the file, he convened a meeting that hadn't been called in decades, the Sovereign Succession Security Council, a body of legal experts, intelligence officers, and royal archivists tasked with one mission: protecting the integrity of the royal lineage in moments of crisis. And this, William made clear, was a crisis. By the end of that meeting, William had issued what insiders are now calling the royal freeze. Archie's name would not be added to the royal household register, his status would not be validated, his claim to any title, any inheritance, any ceremonial role was suspended indefinitely. And the reason? A 6-point memo that palace staff are now referring to as the bloodline files. Let's talk about what's actually in those files, because these aren't vague concerns. These are specific, documented inconsistencies that William's team says have never been explained. First, the pregnancy photos. During Meghan's time carrying Archie, images surfaced that showed wildly different belly sizes on the same day. Royal investigators went back through the media archives and confirmed the timestamps. Same date, same event schedule. But in one photo, Meghan's bump appears large, rounded, and low. In another, taken just hours later, it's noticeably smaller, higher, and appears to have creases beneath her clothing. The palace's forensics team reviewed the images under 3D depth mapping technology. Their conclusion? No organic pregnancy could shift that drastically in such a short window. And that's when the old rumors started creeping back into conversations. The moon bump theory. Second issue, the medical records, or more accurately, the lack of them. When Catherine gave birth to George, Charlotte, and Louis, every delivery was signed off by royal obstetricians. Their names are in the official archives. Their presence was documented. But with Archie, nothing. No royal physicians signed off. No hospital discharge records were filed with the Royal Medical Office. No formal confirmation of labor, delivery, or postnatal care ever entered the system. For a child supposedly born into the line of succession, that's not just unusual, it's unprecedented. Third, the birth certificate itself. Archie's original certificate listed Meghan's name as Rachel Meghan Markle, but nearly a month after his birth, that certificate was amended. Her name was changed to Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan's team claimed the palace ordered the change. The palace denies it. And William's advisors are now asking, why would anyone alter a legal document weeks after the fact, Catherine's children? Their birth certificates remain exactly as they were issued, untouched, unaltered. Fourth, the first photo. The world got its first glimpse of Archie at Windsor Castle in a carefully staged reveal. But even then, something felt off. Lighting experts later confirmed that the image was taken with studio-grade equipment. And unlike every other royal birth in recent history, traditional press photographers were kept out. The event was closed, private, sealed. Fifth, and this is where things get darker, a financial transaction. On May 1st, 2019, 5 days before Archie's birth was announced, a wire transfer of just under $500,000 was executed by Archewell LLC. The recipient? A discreet reproductive medical center near Tijuana, Mexico, a facility known in elite circles for surrogacy coordination and ironclad non-disclosure agreements. The transaction was uncovered by former MI6 analysts now working within the palace's cybersecurity division. They traced the funds through 2 shell companies before landing in a numbered account tied to a corporate entity. This wasn't a prenatal appointment. This was a package deal, and it happened 5 days before the world was told Archie had been born. And finally, the encrypted notes. During the same audit, analysts found embedded metadata within the Archewell transaction files. Hidden within the payment details were references to a non-disclosure agreement between the clinic and a third party. The notes were flagged as consistent with concealed gestational contracts. 6 points, 6 unresolved questions, and William's position is clear. Until every single one of them is answered with verifiable, independent evidence, Archie and Lilibet will not be recognized. He's not rejecting his brother, he's protecting the institution, or at least that's what he's telling himself. But Harry sees it differently. To him, this isn't about protocol, it's about punishment. It's about a family that has never forgiven him for leaving, and now his children are paying the price. Harry's legal team acted fast. They submitted the DNA report through a California-based lab called Horizon Gene Diagnostics. The test concluded with over 99.999% certainty that Harry is Archie's biological father. Case closed, right? Not even close. Because William's team immediately raised red flags. The samples were hand-delivered by someone close to Meghan's inner circle. Not a neutral third party, not through any verified chain of custody. And in the world of forensic science, that's a problem. More concerning, Horizon Gene Diagnostics isn't accredited by the UK's Royal College of Pathologists. It's not recognized under ISO 17025, the international standard for labs handling legal evidence. In short, it's a private lab with no oversight, no audit trail, and no accountability. Palace officials described it as custom-tailored to deliver a result, not discover the truth. Then there's the lawyer, Douglas Hall, an Oregon-based attorney who didn't just oversee the test. He filed a formal petition with the UK Privy Council requesting that Archie and Lilibet be granted full royal protections based on the paternity result. But here's where it gets messy. A leaked email from Hall's office, dated January 22, 2026, was obtained by a UK newspaper. The subject line read, "We need optics, not science." The full message? Even more damning. If Horizon Gene won't expedite results by the 26th, find a partner lab willing to certify pre-analysis validity. It doesn't have to be bulletproof, it just needs to look unimpeachable. The palace will only see the paperwork. Hall hasn't denied the email's authenticity, he's only said it was taken out of context, but the damage was done. Because now it looks like the entire process was designed not to prove paternity, but to create the appearance of proof. And there's more. According to banking records, the DNA sample wasn't just sent to California. A duplicate sample was flown to a second lab in Zurich. But that lab never received payment. It never ran the test. And the sample had been marked practice use only. Why send a sample to a lab you never intended to use? Palace officials believe it was a backup plan in case the UK rejected the California results, which is exactly what happened. But if the DNA test raised suspicions, the intelligence file buried them under concrete. Because this is where the story stops being about family drama and starts being about something far more serious. It's called File Sigma, a classified intelligence report compiled by former MI6 operatives and sealed under the highest level of royal security. The file was originally created in 2019, shortly after Archie's birth, but it was never acted upon. Until now. At the center of this file is that payment. the $500,000 wire transfer to the Mexican clinic. But File Sigma goes deeper. It includes flight manifests showing private jets traveling between Los Angeles and Tijuana in the weeks before Archie's birth. It includes communications between Archewell LLC and offshore entities that specialize in surrogacy contracts. And it includes testimony from a former palace staff member who worked at Frogmore Cottage during Meghan's pregnancy. That staffer, speaking anonymously, said something that still haunts the investigation. The maternity suite at Frogmore was spotless. Too spotless. No delivery prep, no postnatal supplies, not even a breast pump. It felt staged. The palace didn't just ignore this, they documented it, photographed it, filed it away. And now, with William demanding answers, it's all coming back. And then there's the moon bump. For years, the theory that Meghan wore a prosthetic belly was treated as a fringe conspiracy, but the palace never stopped looking into it. On March 5, 2019, Meghan attended 2 public events in London. Photographs from both events exist, and they don't match. In the first image, Meghan's belly is large, rounded, and sits low. In the second, taken just 6 hours later, her midsection is noticeably smaller, higher, and appears to have visible creasing beneath her coat. A private 3D reconstruction was commissioned by the palace. Their conclusion? No organic pregnancy could present such a drastic shift in mass and curvature within that time frame. It's not proof, but it's not nothing either. So where does that leave us? With 2 brothers on opposite sides of an impossible divide, with 2 children caught in the middle, and with a monarchy that's about to make a decision that could define its future for generations. Because William didn't just question the evidence, he froze the entire process. On the evening of February 11th, a velvet-bound file was delivered to the office of the Royal Register. Inside was a formal directive signed by William ordering an emergency lockdown. The directive suspended any modifications related to Archie and Lilibet's royal status. In practical terms, the children are now in limbo. Their names have been removed from the active digital roster, and until a full review is complete, they exist in a kind of royal purgatory, acknowledged by their father, rejected by the institution. William invoked Clause 6 of the Sovereign Child Declaration Act, an obscure protocol from 1837 that allows the heir to the throne to suspend claims to royal lineage in cases of ambiguity or forensic dispute. It's been called the nuclear button of lineage control, and it hasn't been used in over a century. But William wasn't done, because behind the scenes, another figure had quietly re-entered the arena, King Charles. In December 2025, weeks before his health took a turn, Charles wrote a private memo. It was sealed under Level 4 security. The subject line? Sussex children and the threshold of trust. The contents are still classified, but palace insiders have confirmed its existence. And they say it contains recommendations for what should happen if further forensic irregularities emerge. An aide close to the situation described it this way. As a grandfather, he felt love. As a sovereign, he felt pressure. But ultimately, he deferred to William's judgment. Meghan's legal team saw the lockdown coming. On the morning of February 12th, they filed a preemptive counter-motion in the UK High Court. The filing accuses Prince William and the Privy Council of orchestrating what they call a custodial coup. Their argument? Archie and Lilibet are dual citizens. Their rights are protected under international family law. The Royal Household Register has no legal right to determine identity or legitimacy, and the actions taken constitute institutional erasure. The filing included photographs of Archie's birthday celebration and a sworn letter from Tyler Perry reaffirming that Meghan carried and nurtured both children amid extraordinary public abuse. But the palace hasn't responded publicly. Their silence is strategic. The divide within the family is now undeniable. Princess Anne reportedly supports William's firm stance. Prince Edward is deeply uncomfortable but believes the monarchy cannot afford to be caught unprepared. Queen Camilla was reportedly overheard saying, "The crown must stand taller than its scandal." And Harry, he's furious, devastated. A palace insider described a recent phone call between William and Harry as short, sharp, and ice cold. But the freeze didn't just affect the register, it affected titles and inheritance. William issued a formal advisory to the College of Arms, halting any ceremonial use of the titles Prince or Princess for Archie and Lilibet. The advisory isn't a full legal revocation, but it's binding in practice. Even more incendiary is what's happening with Princess Diana's estate. According to her 1996 will, her residual fortune is to be divided equally between her sons and their legitimate descendants. That estate is currently valued at over £22 million. But with Archie and Lilibet's legitimacy now suspended, William has quietly consulted with the trustees, raising the possibility of placing the children's allocation in escrow. That would effectively cut off immediate financial access. Harry has described this as a betrayal not just of him, but of their mother. Diana would never have let bloodline paranoia override her love for her grandchildren, he reportedly told a friend. But palace advisors argue that until legitimacy is confirmed, trustees must act with caution. And so, a commission was activated, one that hasn't been publicly convened in living memory. The Royal Commission for Lineal Ethics and Continuity, established in 1975 but never before used in full public view. Its panel of 7 includes senior lords, a retired judge, the Royal Archivist General, a constitutional historian, and a former intelligence officer. Their task? To determine whether the lineage of Archie and Lilibet meets the minimum standard of legitimacy required to retain or restore standing within the royal household. The Commission has already requested access to all versions of birth certificates, travel logs, surveillance records, and financial transfers. If the Commission concludes that the children's births were not consistent with royal succession standards, the fallout will be catastrophic. Archie and Lilibet would be permanently removed. Any title claims would be legally extinguished. Inheritance rights could be nullified. And perhaps most gravely, Prince Harry himself may be stripped of his HRH styling. As of February 13, 2026, the final report is being reviewed by 3 individuals only: Prince William, Princess Anne, and the Lord Chancellor. Meghan Markle is reportedly preparing a recorded interview to be released within hours of the Commission's verdict. The interview, filmed at her Montecito estate, is expected to include an emotional defense of her motherhood and her assertion that this investigation is rooted in misogyny and institutional gatekeeping. "I carried my children. I gave birth to them. And now they're being erased," Meghan allegedly says. "This isn't about lineage. This is about power, fear, and control." Prince William is preparing his own response. A draft statement titled, "On the Matter of Lineage and Constitutional Continuity" will address the outcome, the registry status, and the Crown's position on future claims. At one point, he reportedly says, "This decision was not made with malice, it was made with duty. I would rather carry the burden of public backlash than risk the erosion of royal truth." But there's one more twist. A sealed travel manifest lists a private jet scheduled to land on the morning of February 14, 2026. The registered passengers? One adult male traveling under the name Henry Mountbatten-Windsor. 2 minor children listed as dependents. No Meghan, no security detail, no press. If this is true, it's an extraordinary gesture. It may be Harry's last-ditch effort to show the children belong not just by blood, but by presence. Outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, journalists have begun setting up camp. Headlines are sweeping across Europe. The children in limbo, royal verdict imminent. The prince and the DNA files. Markle versus Monarchy, who owns the bloodline? Opinion remains sharply divided. Some view Meghan as a modern mother crushed by medieval tradition. Others see William as a necessary steward of royal continuity. And many now see Harry as the tragic figure in between. If the Commission rules in favor of Archie and Lilibet, they'll be reinstated, eligible to use titles, added to the line of succession, entitled to Diana's trust. If the Commission rules against them, they'll be formally and permanently excluded. All legal and ceremonial claims will be void. Harry may face disciplinary action. This is not just a royal story, it is a global case study in legacy, power, identity, and truth. 2 brothers, 2 children, 1 bloodline. One question that will define the monarchy for a generation. Does birth alone make you royal? Or must the crown recognize you first? The answer is coming. And when it does, nothing will ever be the same.